first up is gonna be public comment. This is, comment on anything not on the agenda. We'll limit the public comments to 2 minutes. One person can speak per topic. We have no discussion on the topic. Board can determine if they want to put it on a future agenda. No questions will be answered. You must be respectful, not target anyone. You need to wait to be recognized. State your name for the record. We'll work through the room first and then go to Zoom. If you're on Zoom and have something to say, you'll need to raise your hand using the feature on Zoom. Robin?
This is a personal comment. I'm here for other things on the agenda. I want to thank you all. You have probably, as select board members, one of the most difficult and contentious jobs that I can think of. It's hard, and people don't come to select board meetings to say, gee, you've done a good job, you know? and they don't, and you don't come onto the select board with, I think, with anything other than the good of the community as your agenda. And I really appreciate that. And it's not, over the 10 years that I've been coming on behalf of the library, it's not like we've always agreed, because we haven't. But I have always felt heard. I have always felt like we've had conversations and that we've been able to work things out. And for that, I am grateful. So, thanks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the public comment in the room. No hands for please.
Eva Loomis just went up, I think. Yeah. Oh, still muted, Eva.
Sorry, thank you. Hi, everyone. This is Eva Loomis. I had a public comment a couple months ago, earlier this winter. Somebody commented on Front Porch Forum. It was sounded like an older woman wondering who's responsible for maintaining some of the steps and sort of walkways on Main Street. And I reached out to the highway department. Oh, so going back a bit, Walk Bike Roll Randolph cleared some of those walkways, or I think sort of curb steps between the sidewalk and the road where people park. And I reached out to the highway department to just understand who is responsible for this. Is this a thing that landlords are responsible for doing? Is this something that, landlords and their tenants negotiate? Is this a town task? Who is responsible for this? So I'm just asking out of curiosity, and I'll hope to hear an answer either on Front Porch Forum or, some way. Thank you.
Quickly, if you want.
Question.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we can point out that Front Page Forum is not an official town communication site also. So you may not see it there.
Okay. But it sounds like somebody will put the word out.
Do you have any changes to agenda?
I don't have any for you to consider.
Motion to approve agenda?
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Consent calendar, the meeting minutes of the 22nd, and warrants.
I found a very minor typo. I don't know if it's. Sorry, I should have actually taken specific note of it. I had an extra that in one of the sentences.
Extra that?
Yeah, it just made it slightly confusing, but maybe, it's not really that confusing, it's just a typo. It doesn't actually change so maybe we're good. I'm sorry, I'm not coming up with it right away. Right, under 5B, line 51, it says Tween said she that Mark provided.
So remove the word she.
Yep, yep, there you go, the extra T, sorry. Thank you. I spoke some of that.
Keep that.
Right, any other? I motion to approve with said edit.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Moving down to the business agenda, the Kimball Public Library Fund Budget Presentation and Discussion.
Ben and Amy are here to present to you.
We are.
Do you want me to pull anything up on the screen? Do you want?
No.
Contemporaneously, everything's
will.
loaded. If there's a line you want to refer to, just
Okay,
give me a signal of some kind.
yeah, no, I think we can just talk about it.
Okay.
So. I hate doing this. I'm desperately hoping after, all this time that this is the last time I have to do this. So there are three underlying principles that we worked with when we were building our budget. The first was, as always, that we be fiscally frugal, and we, over, all of the time that I have been on the board, I think that has been a hallmark of the way that we budget. Our increases, when we have asked for them over the last 10 years, have been relatively small. They are generally under 10%, and certainly in line with what other departments have asked. And despite unexpected expenses, like this year we had a heat pump die, we continue to come in within our budget, if not under a little. And in fact, for this past fiscal year, we are at the 50% mark roughly, and we are 41% of the way through our budget. And we had a heat pump die, it's not, the actual dollar increase, I know the percentage increase looks kind of shocking. The actual dollar increase is relatively small. Even the percentage increase is in line with what other departments have requested. We have a similar increase online for Braintree. The increase for the budget for Randolph is 19%, for Braintree it's 20%, and the trustees are kicking in 100% more of our, what we generally contribute to the budget. We're careful about the money that you allocate for us, and we try and be careful as we spend it. The second principle has been, as a part of our Sustainable Libraries initiative, we talked about that one last year when we talked about the trash audit, and the decisions that we had made regarding garbage going out of the library, is that we try to consider living wage. We want the people that work for us to be able to live in the community where they work. We want them to be able to spend money here, and raise their kids and do all of that good stuff. So we look at a lot of the market research, a lot of the information that was in your packet was market research around comparable salaries for libraries that do the business that we do, which Amy is going to talk about, I think, in a minute. In communities, municipal libraries in communities that are roughly the size of ours. We serve, I'm going to stomp on one of her statistics, in terms of departments that are funded by the town, we serve 25% of Braintree and Randolph are active card-carrying members of the library that are in and out of the library. That includes East Randolph, Randolph Center. It includes, so unlike lots of town departments, which are limited by geography, we are not. We also serve a huge portion of the community just as drop-in services. If you need to use the copier, You don't need to be a card-carrying member of the library. If you need to fax something, you don't need to be a card-carrying member of the library. If you need to come in and sit down and do some research, you can just come in and do that. And there's a fair amount of traffic that way. Okay. But anyway, the living wage thing, we looked at what it costs to live in this community, you know, and to raise children here and to have housing here. And what positions like our librarians, what they get paid. I got lost there for a minute. We can't make up the difference in one budget cycle. We know that. We knew that the last time we did a market adjustment, but we have to start somewhere. The third principle that has been very important to the board is that we have to take care of the people that work for us. We're employers, and we want them to stay. They bring a vast amount of experience and care and knowledge to their positions, and we value that. And so we try to recognize that. We are following the lead of the town in that way. You have done market adjustments for a number of positions. I'm thinking a couple of years ago, we had a town manager who left and returned. And when he returned, which wasn't that long,
For the day, but
Hmm?
I think you're going back farther than, probably, yeah.
2012.
Well, that was a couple of years ago.
It was a couple of years ago, but you know, his salary
Years ago.
went up like 125% instead of just, here's what it would have been had you stayed. You know, he got a market adjustment. It was the right thing to do. He did market adjustments for the new hire, you know, the finance manager, as you were posting the position, because it was the right thing to do. You know, you've done market adjustments for, you did a market adjustment for a couple of positions last year because it was the right thing to do. We are trying to do the right thing by the people that work for us. And so those are sort of the underlying, you know, the underlying pieces that we looked at. And I guess,
So
I'm
before
good.
we leave you, you said, that you were making adjustments,
Yeah.
but not all in 1 year. So what's the anticipated adjustment then for next year?
I anticipate, I'm not going to be on the board, so I'm just making,
You got the- you got
making
the
predictions
presentation.
like that. My guess is that we will, that the board will probably stay with the regular salary adjustment that has happened, you know, that will sit in that spot for a few years.
Okay, so it's not over a multi-year period, it's over a 1 year period.
What we are, the budget ask that we have is an adjustment that brings it up to,
Well, you had said it was a multi-year, not one cycle. But it
we
is,
did it before. We've done it before. So we said, as a matter of fact, it was one of my first meetings with this board years and years ago, Trini, and you may remember this. We came in, we had decided to do a market adjustment for the director's salary at that point, and we came in and the town manager at the time had given the Selectboard the wrong budget numbers. And so you were looking at in your packet something that was completely different from the budget that had been sent to he and the finance person. And we had a somewhat testy conversation, as I recall. I was like, you're not looking at the right thing, right? So that was the last time that we had made an adjustment. It's not a thing that we do really often, but it is a thing you have to take care of. You have to look at periodically and say, this is not, the salary compression that has occurred here is no longer acceptable.
another statement, you said it was a similar increase to other departments.
You
But
have other departments that have 20% increases on the table, I believe.
I don't see any.
The
I've got a
police-
4.1,
Police department.
police department is at 8.8. I don't have anybody in double digits even.
Okay.
The next one up is special appropriations at 9.2,
Okay.
so it's quite a difference.
Then I
Actually.
may have had information that was not.
Yeah, I'm not missing anything, right? It's just,
The prior police budget was in the 12-13% range, but after Tuesday got adjusted to where it is now.
Okay.
The rest were under whatever highway would be, sort of be the next highest, around 7-8.
highway 7.8
So-
because of the salt.
I would not, yeah, and I would not have seen, if you made that adjustment on Tuesday, I would not have seen that. So the
Yeah, but
numbers
it's
that I
still
have
quite a
predate.
bit. I mean,
It is.
even 12% is still 10 lower. I wouldn't say that was similar, but, okay, I just wanted to
It's okay.
make sure we were talking the right numbers, but. Okay, anybody else have any questions for Robin?
Questions, are interest are we getting right now, are we? is there more
I don't know,
information?
I think Dean, you wanted to present
Okay.
some stuff
Cool.
too, so we can do that,
got
and then
some-
do actual individual line items.
Libraries by the library by the numbers that we'd like people to.
I know that not everybody in this room is a regular library visitor, so I'm just gonna give you a little window into what a year at the library is like. These are statistics that I'll be reporting to the Vermont Department of Libraries that cover our last fiscal year, so the year that ended June 30th. The library was open 300 days that year. In fact, we're open 300 days every year. And in that time, we had more than 20,000 people come into the building. So if you want to think about that in a number that makes more sense, it's not quite 70 visits per day. There's a lot of foot traffic. We offered 408 events in those 300 days. So often, obviously, more than one event per day. And those events are anything from the preschool and toddler story times, which we've had more than 30 people show up to those, which is a lot of crowd control, but also a lot of fun. Tabletop gaming, tech drop-in time. We had 7 people show up today who needed help with their tablets, phones, computers. That's a service that is incredibly popular and well used and important, especially I would say to the elders in our community. But also things like snowshoes or passes to museums that give people a discount. And in addition to the physical items that were borrowed, 9,653 ebooks and audio were downloaded. So people can borrow ebooks and audio anywhere that they happen to have an internet connection, to be able to read on their tablet or their phone. To get down to more Randolph specific numbers, during fiscal year 25, we had 1,217 active registered borrowers living in Randolph, so Randolph residents. And to put that one into perspective, it's about 25% of the population. And I kind of love this visualization. I hope you do too. Imagine if you're walking through Shaw's and every person you meet is a Randolph resident and you high five every 4th person that you see. Those are all registered library borrowers. But as Robin said, you don't have to be a registered borrower to come in and use all of the other services that I've talked about. Programs, tech drop-in time, just sitting and being in a warm or a cool place socializing with people, being seen and heard by the library staff. Today, it was like it was like Kinko's, for those of you who remember Kinko's. We photocopied, we faxed, we scanned, we printed for people. Sometimes I think we should rename ourselves Kinko's of Randolph, but never mind, bad idea. So going by how much money we brought in to pay for those things, about 10,000 pages were photocopied or printed during the course of that fiscal year, and we sent hundreds of faxes for people, which is not easy. It's not easy to find a place to do that. I've already mentioned that people just come in to hang out. They're having their snow tires thrown on. They've lost internet at home. They don't have electricity because it's out. They need to have a Zoom meeting, and we have super fast internet. They just want to be somewhere in public. We see folks who are donating food to and taking food from the pantry that's available 24/7. That food moves all the time. And one thing that you all may not have thought of, but we see all the time, is folks who are considering moving to this community stop in to check out the library because they consider that amenity just as important as having a hospital, as having a grocery store, as having a movie theater. Whatever their passion is, they need to know that they have a public library that's going to serve them. So that's Kimball Library in and of itself. We also have some fantastic peer comparisons, and this is based on data that would have been gathered the previous year. This is the data that's currently available statewide. And just to distill it, among 48 peer libraries, and this is based on the population that we serve, we're in the top 30%. So we're at like the 70th percentile for how many visits we have, how many items we circulate, the number of programs that we offer, and the reference questions that we respond to. Not to toot our own horn, but we're kicking ass at that library. We listen to our community, we respond to what they asked us for. It's heavily used. The services there are, as I hear over and over again, people are grateful that they can do the things that they can do at the library. And having said that, I want to start with a shout out. This also comes from the patrons who are grateful that the snow is cleared on the steps and on the walkway down to the accessible entrance. So that's a shout out to Ron with the Buildings and Grounds Department, who comes out and shovels this up, salts the road or salts it, makes sure it's safe for people to get in. And a shout out too to the Highway Department. I came in this morning and I noticed that the sidewalk edges were cleared. That's a real challenge for people, even if you don't have a mobility impairment, to get over those. So folks were coming into the library today and expressing how grateful they were that it was easy to get onto the sidewalk and not have to walk in the road. So yes, gratitude to the Highway Department for doing that work last night. That's what I have to say.
Okay. What we are hoping for, we understand that it's a big ask. You know, that 20% looks, or 19% looks like a really large increase to the appropriation that we're asking for in the town. We understand that you may not feel that that's a possible thing to do. And so what we would hope is that we would come away with a number, and then we'll go back and talk about it and we'll work it out. We'd like, what we want is, I mean, ideally what we want is what we ask for, right? Otherwise we wouldn't have put it down, and we wouldn't have done that huge, that gigantic packet of research that you got along with the budget package. But we get it. You know, we want it to pass. We want a number that both addresses our concerns about all of it, you know, about the budget and about about caring for the people that we work for and caring for being able to continue to have the people with this vast amount of expertise and understanding of what the community wants and ability to keep going back to the community and saying, what is it you need from us? And then figuring out a way to provide it in a sustainable way. We think that's the number. If you think differently, we want a number that'll pass, that allows us to do some of that. But the trustees will go back. We've made a commitment. And we'll go back and revisit that based on what happens today.
Just so you're clear, the agenda, we are passing the budget out tonight. So what'll happen is you'll end up with a dollar value.
That's okay.
And that's what's gonna end up on the warrant, because
That's
the
okay.
warrant is gonna be approved tonight also.
We will, and once we have that number, I mean, we've proposed a number, and once we have the number that we take back, the trust will go back and decide what we want to do with the other priorities of the budget.
They present one for your consideration, you'll provide a number, they then fill in the blanks to match that number in terms of how it operates.
Yeah. We may, I don't know what we're gonna do.
We have some questions. You wanna start?
Where to start? I have a lot of concerns about the massive raises. We have our school board literally cutting people out of our schools.
Mhm.
Because normal people can't afford to live in Randolph either. I mean, I can't tell you how many of my kids' friends are now gone from our community
Mhm.
because people are moving away from Randolph because of the high taxes. So wanting to care about your employees, I totally understand that. I also want to be able to live in Randolph. I also want my business to be able to stay, and I'm not the only business owner who's on the verge of leaving Randolph. As we talk about that, I mean, this is not just, I mean, this affordability, it's a crisis across the board, for everybody, and people are leaving our community. I also find the packet of information kind of misleading. It was, I mean, if you kind of dig into the numbers, the average director for a library in Vermont about our size would be about $72,000, not $95,000. Throwing in national numbers out of Boston, all of those things, it's pretty far off from what I think is actually what is the more market value of a director's position. I also think it can throw off our whole entire employee compensation across the board. So if we bump the library director up to third in line in our town, that chart was also missing a highway department director, and our wastewater manager numbers were not on there. And I believe the director of our library would then make more than some of our officers would, if that's.
Oh, the director does now, the other two employees would have a base salary that would probably be more than the two police officers. Yeah, before you factor in overtime and other chip differential and all that.
Yeah.
The director is the library director is one of the lowest paid employees in the
Right.
town at the moment.
There's also other considerations too, of like, how many FTEs do you oversee? Do you have Amy, do you ever have to come in at 2 a.m. for an emergency?
I've never been called for a fire alarm yet.
Yeah, well, fine. I mean, you know, and like, so I'm not against adjusting, those numbers, but it really throws a wrench into the whole entire thought. And so if we're going to then correct, all the other people in our town's wages, we have a lot of taxes to keep up with.
May I
And
interject a question here?
sure.
So I admit I did not look through the general budget with a fine tooth comb, but I believe that one of the things that was included was an option or an opportunity to do a wage survey for the entire.
It is in the works, and
In the
so,
next year.
yes, so the
In the
next
general
year.
fund.
Yeah, it's in the general fund to do that, but we have not done it yet.
Is
And
that
so-
intended to include the library staff or?
Well, and that's kind of the weirdness of this whole entire situation too, right? Is because, you're not a department head. Because you're not, well, but you're not underneath the town. So it's like this weirdness because you're being, the library board is overseeing you,
Mhm.
right? And so they're the ones in charge of deciding what you get paid, not the
Yes.
town. And so when there's adjustments made, they're not always made across the board because, I mean, people like Mimi, the lister, she's the one who kind of decides for salary. She puts it forth, the voters vote on it. Same with the town clerk and treasurer. And so it's not, there's not one person in our town who's deciding everybody's, you know what I mean? So, so there is definitely some weirdness to shifting, like we're not all shifting together, I guess, is part of it.
Right.
And that's what this,
The studies are set up in a way where it could accommodate different designs and different additions, so we do have a little capacity if we wanted to add everybody in.
I think it should. I think it should include everybody.
Yeah, I
and
agree.
Not that I'll have a say.
yeah.
I know. I feel like the lame duck representative here, you know? I would
I
say,
do think there's a variety of things too, though, right? When we look at what we pay somebody, it's not by longevity usually, and it's not by just because you have a seat and oversee people. It goes into skills, it goes into responsibility levels, it goes into all those things.
Right.
So when we look at, if we were to say, oh, this is a great idea, let's pay Amy 95,000 a year, plus all the added pieces. How do you reconcile that to paying somebody like John less or Chris Chambers less than the librarian, right? Their two functions, if the water wastewater plant shut down, nobody showed up to work, we got a problem.
Mhm.
Immediate issue, right? And if the highway crew doesn't show up and we shut down any highway work, that's impacting everybody, including the library, because nobody's getting there and the snow's not plowed and people are climbing over it and then they're gonna be complaining. But if the library shut their doors for a couple days, it's not a drop dead emergency. Yes, people want access to social programs and whatnot, but it's not the same level, right? We got a flood, the library doesn't respond out to fix the roads to get people out of their homes and whatnot. You might help in other ways, right? They may not have power, they may need a place to log in to do some work or whatever, but
or be warm.
you look at the impact, right? What's their job? What's the function? What's the impact? That's what a study like this is gonna do.
Mhm.
It's going to look at all of that. And then it's gonna compare them with true peers, not the Bostons, not the nationals, the regionals. It's gonna look at, in a group of peers, what does this look like? All the time you'll hear us talk about a town that has a very similar function. Brandon comes up quite often
Mhm.
when we're looking at areas and characteristics that are the same. Hartford has come up a few times in different things that we're looking for comparables. They're not always the same. We're not always looking for a population comparable. We might be looking for the territory of what a police department covers. We might be looking at who also has an ice rink and their so it's all different factors. But sometimes you gotta have that look at everything. And then it doesn't mean that you're automatically going to that, right? Because if we said, oh, we're gonna do this study and we're gonna put everybody's salary right to that, right? Now you got a union contract to
Mhm.
work through and you got an affordability issue. So it's not just a study to say, where should the salaries be? It's a study to say, sort of where are they at and how do we make an adjustment? You had said one cycle, it's not coming in one cycle. Any adjustment coming out of this study won't be able to happen in one cycle either. There's just no way that the town can afford that. And it may mean that afterwards, after you look at it all, we may need to have a bigger conversation as a town. Like, what are the services we want? What do we want to see expand? If we take our town budget and we back it off and we look at categories, the town of Randolph spends about $1 million on social programming.
Mhm.
Recreation in the library is $1 million. And that's a lot of money. That's 10% of the budgets that we have.
It speaks to
And-
a huge need within the community, I think.
Well, it does, but then you've got to look at an affordability issue too, right? Like, we're maxing out our capacity for taxes.
It's,
And it's a matter of now having to take a step back and say, here's what we can really afford. where do we allocate it?
Mhm.
Where does the town want it? What are we not going to do, right? We can't just keep jacking it up and raising more. We either gotta drastically raise the grand list with a lot of development in Randolph, and I don't know how many people wanna talk about this, but I can tell you, I've been involved in the economic development side of the town for a lot of years, and we're not gonna see a huge boom of suddenly like a $10 million expansion of our grand list. Just isn't gonna happen here. We either have to increase that so we have a bigger tax base and can raise more money, or we have to look at where we're allocating the resources we have and how that should be.
And part of, you alluded to the social programming part. I think that without those things, your chances of improving the grand list get slimmer and slimmer.
We're
and
chasing
slimmer.
our tail,
Yeah.
and we will be, but at the same time, when nobody wants to be here, people are leaving and people are not coming because our taxes are as high as they are.
Mhm.
I mean, we've got that. I don't know what we hear a lot of stuff that are reasons, but that's one of them is the affordability piece.
Yes, I live here, I pay taxes here, I
Yeah.
got the
It
cold
sucks.
place, I
Twice
got
a
the,
year,
yeah.
you wait until the last minute to go see Tammy and she's sitting there going, I'm sorry.
Oh, we don't yell at her, but I do understand that. We got the bill, we got the reappraisal, I looked at it and went, huh? I understand that. But those resources that we provide, those social resources that we provide, things like the library, and like the recreation department, and just the general support of making this a good place to live. Those are important, and that's part of what brings people here to the community. The houses up on Hospital Hill flipped over, the ones that went on sale over the last year and 2 years, flipped so fast that you almost didn't see the for sale signs out there. People do want to live here. I think, but you're right, there's a sweet spot, and you find the sweet spot as you go along. I disagree with the concern about bumping Amy up or the director's position, because it's not just Amy, it is the director. Bumping it up in the sequence of positions in the town. I don't completely understand why that's a problem. She does oversee a staff. She is on call for emergencies. She does have responsibilities that get more and more complex every year that goes by. And, the next item on the agenda is the cupola thing. So her responsibilities include grant writing, and they will include some construction supervision and all of we keep asking more and more and more. And you have to recognize the amount of work that goes into that position, that goes into a position like that, and how it changes. We followed for years the salary increases that go to the town that are negotiated by the union. That's how you get salary compression, right? Is you've got your people that have been here forever, and they keep getting that 2.5% or 3%, and it keeps meaning less and less and less as you go up the schedule. We need to correct that. We have good people that work at the library. They have a lot of expertise. They're really good at their jobs. They engage the community in ways that would be really difficult to do without some support. We want to support them. Can we do this all in one shot? The answer is always no if you don't ask. And so that's what we planned for. We did the Coupa data from around New England. We did not consider that nearly as much as we considered similar data for libraries that serve the population, the size population that they serve, and provide the services that our librarians provide.
And I want to point out that when you look at the data for peer libraries that the working group put together in their survey, they also point out that because librarianship has been a female-dominated profession from the get-go and still is, that using median or even top wages for those workers needs to take into account the gender gap.
And the gender gap in Vermont is significant. women in Vermont make 80 cents for every dollar in comparable positions to men.
Yeah, not all of them, but.
Well, by
in
and
some
large,
fields.
I mean, it's averages are averages, so there are some that do better and some that don't.
I think one thing that sticks out to me, and I first want to say, we appreciate everything you do. And we're not saying that what you do isn't important or impactful on this town. My boys love walking to the library before they head on their day. I know so many kids who like going to Dungeons and Dragons or Legos. Like, it's a great part of our town. It's important and we need it. And I just want to reiterate that. Like,
Thanks, Mom.
it's not that we don't think you should be here. There's just numbers, I think, that go behind it. And one of the things that stuck out to me in this certain packets that I printed out so I could look at 18 things at once was the sentence that said that Amy ranks 7th of 8 department heads despite managing a department comparable in scope and community impact to recreation, highway, and finance. I disagree wholeheartedly, and I'm sorry, but highway and finance, I would argue that their scope is bigger than yours and much more in depth. I don't know where we would be without highway and John and his countless hours of overtime. We have a new finance director, right? Like, thank the Lord we have a new, thank you for being here tonight. And that job is huge, huge and covers so much. I'm having a hard time finding the library director position comparable to highway and finance. And I looked, and I hope you can, I looked online at your hours that you're open, and you're only open 36 hours a week. And the hours are very interesting, like 10 to 1 some days, 2 to 8, 10 to 5. Those hours that you're open aren't comparable either to finance or highway. So that really stuck out to me. And I have a hard time to myself, how would I approve this budget and make the library director the 3rd highest paid above finance and highway? That's a real big struggle to me. And did you add this, did you add this?
It's been referenced in conversations before, and we get a copy every year, so.
And I looked over this a lot too, and I don't know how to read it. Maybe I'm reading it wrong, but I'm looking at, I'm looking at towns with comparable population, and their estimated gross isn't in the 90s. It's in the 70s, maybe some in the 80s. But I'm looking at towns who are a salary that you're asking for, like Middlebury, and it says their population is 2,000 more than us. South Burlington has 13,000 more people than us. I'm struggling, and I'm not saying you aren't deserving of a raise. I'm just struggling with that jump.
It has to be a thoughtful conversation on things.
I also struggle, at some point that whole balance thing comes into play too. And before, when I first moved here, there was a very, very small rec program that was offered through the town, and all of the sports were based on parents stepping up and organizing it for free, volunteering. Our whole rec department is based on volunteers, but we keep adding, and we keep adding, and we keep adding, and we keep adding, and the volunteerism is disappearing, and the expectation of more and more and more and more from our town, but then also the expectation that our tax dollars are not directly affected by that. This is literally, this is our money. This isn't some magic, we don't have Walmarts or anything like that we're grabbing a lot of tax money from that we can use to help people. And that's where it gets really sticky to me. And especially I feel like the people that are coming into the library by and large also are people who can't really afford internet or different things like that. And so you're serving a population. The population that you're trying to serve and trying to support, you're also kind of taking from them by having massive tax increases, if that makes sense. So there has to be a balance, because families like me, we could barely afford to live here. And I'm not alone. I know I'm not alone in that at all. And I feel like we have to, at some point, decide as a town government that we can only provide so much to our community. Before it becomes a burden on our community financially to provide that. And that's where I struggle. I struggle with it. I mean, my kids do a lot with rec. And I struggle with just how much money we also spend in rec too, and like where is the balance? And how do we be really mindful of that, especially in today's climate? I feel like if we had a better climate right now, this would be a lot easier.
I would love for that to be the case, Stephanie. I love your optimism. I have to say that in the 23 or 24 times I've gone through these budget talks, there's never been a good time to raise taxes. So,
Yeah.
but maybe in the future. Who knows?
I would say I'm glad that because the salary of the library is set by the Board of Trustees, I'm glad you're looking at it. Wish you had over a period of time rather than this one big jump. I also would say a market rate adjustment is usually based on competitiveness. So if you look at all these towns, as Molly was mentioning, of what people are making, if Amy were to leave, how hard would it be for us? What would we have to increase the price to be able to replace? Right. And so like, that's just to be thinking, we're not setting anyone's salary tonight. We're setting a budget number, and then you guys, I would just say like, going all in like this, it's kind of offensive. Like, I mean,
Well, I don't think we meant to be offensive, Alyssa. I think we needed.
but like Amy, like everyone deserves to get a cost of living increase. Like it should be looked at. I'm glad you're finally looking at it. I wish you had been looking at it for the past 10 years and bringing it up as something to increase more often over a longer period.
We did increase it. We did do the market increase, and that was also a lively conversation a number of years ago. And at the board meeting where we decided on the budget, we did acknowledge the fact that we had been a bit remiss in not addressing it in smaller chunks. We know that what you decide is, what do we ask the town for? And then we will go back into the budget. So what you're looking at is the increase that we're asking in the allocation from the town, right? And you'll make a decision about that, and then the trustees will go back into a meeting and we will decide what we would like to do about that. We'll run the spreadsheets and do it again. We just know that we need to do something. And maybe what will come out of it is a graduated plan. I don't know. I'm like Trini. This is all be done. So it will be a different board that will be dealing with it.
I will say, Alyssa, that in concert with doing all of this research to inform the budget that you're looking at, the library board also passed a policy that means that at least every 3 years they go through this process again. So it's not a decade or 2 decades before the research is done to understand where are we in terms of the market.
And I suspect that we would find any of the librarians difficult to replace at the salaries that they're currently making. Like you find with any position, your entry level folks are always starting way up higher, much higher than the people that are living in the positions now.
But this isn't all of the expenses of the library either, correct?
No, the rest of them, if you look down the spreadsheet, the rest of them are pretty much.
No, but this isn't even, what's in the budget isn't all the expenses, because you have no projects in here, right? Those must get paid a different way.
Are you talking about like capital projects?
Yes.
Yeah, this is the
Those type
operating
of-
budget. I did provide a capital budget request to be considered for the capital improvement plan, but I don't see any of those projects included.
And there's also how does the budget work with, like, if, you've got the Friends of Kimball, and then you've got endowments and other funds, those are controlled by Friends of Kimball?
The
The
endowment is control, there are two endowments. One is controlled by the trustees of public funds. The other is controlled by the Kimball Library trustees. And there's a policy that governs that as well, how much money can be drawn based on the trailing 36 month level.
And the endowment is where the trustees' money comes out of, that's in the budget?
It comes from that, mostly it comes from the annual fundraising letter that we send out.
And then all the fees that you collect, those come back in through the town?
Yes,
Back around.
photocopies, non-resident
All that stuff.
users. Yep.
Yeah, kind of cool.
The, just one more question. The actual over the 2 years, 3 minutes, if we said yes to everything you want, it's $138,000 increase over 2 years in the budget, which is pretty sizable. Correct. The other thing the majority of when I look at your budget, if we approve this and the new salary goes through, that's calculated it. It's like 22% of your budget is just to pay your director.
Good director.
I know. 22%.
Thanks, Eva.
I mean, that's a sizable chunk of that budget to pay one person.
Again.
Sorry, I'm trying to.
You had a comment from
Okay.
camera?
I just had a quick question. I was looking at the last budget that I've seen. And because it's on my phone, I can't see it very well. Do any other departments have a revenue line that actually, I mean, there's a line, but a lot of it is zero. So I was just wondering if any other department brings in their own money the way that the library does.
Recreation has a
Oh, they have
sizable
their-
amount of
their
revenue
fees
that
in there,
comes
yeah.
in.
Tammy's, yes,
Tammy
fees.
brings in quite a bit.
Good fingerprinting for the police department.
Yeah, the police department has a fair amount of revenue they bring in.
On fire for,
Fire brings in some.
yeah.
Yeah, not a lot.
Obviously, the Braintree contract, some insurance billing.
Yeah.
I think the library is unique in that, I could be wrong, so educate me, but I think the library is unique in that we actively do fundraising to cover our operating expenses.
Fire departments, some of them have auxiliaries
Hmm.
that raise funding to buy specialized equipment or I think I've seen them where they purchase jackets and things like that for the firemen. So they do some of that. That raises funding.
Yeah, the UTV was fundraised, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Rally. So, yeah, there's others that do it too. Any other questions in the room for the library budget? Any other board members have questions? Seeing none, any online? And
The hands
Kaplan?
went up, yeah.
Thank you. This is John Kaplan, by the way. So I just wanted to say that I support the library's request, and I would encourage the board to support the full request. I think what they're asking is reasonable. I looked through not all of the packet that they provided you, but seems like there is some very good rationale for especially getting the director's salary, which looks like it's kind of not been where it should be for quite some time, but getting it up to be comparable with other positions like that. And I just did some quick math because I already have a tax calculating spreadsheet. the total increase that they're asking for a house, like I live on Hospital Hill. So for our house, the total increase they're asking for would be $75 a year more on our taxes, which is what, about $6.50 a month. And I would say that that is well worth it. And I don't think it seems difficult to. I'm glad that the town is going to be going through a salary study, but I think it's very difficult to kind of compare work between different departments in the town and say that, you know, one is more valuable than the other. And I think Amy did a great job of outlining all of the services that the library provides. And I think our community would really be at a disadvantage if we did not have the library and the quality services that it provides. So anyway, I just wanted to speak in favor of what they're asking for, and does not seem out of line with you know, when looking at the numbers overall and what it would, how it would impact individual property owners. And I think that in terms of like increasing the grand list, great. I hope that that does happen. But I think if we don't have quality things like the library and good recreation department and programs, we're going to have an even harder time getting businesses to move here and getting people to move here and live here. Thank you.
I think it's very easy for us to take one budget line item and compute the tax impact. It's the aggregate that's the problem. If we had no other increases and the only increase we were facing was the library budget, it'd be a much easier decision. It's not, obviously, and there's a lot of demands all across the town. So, I mean, it's very easy to build a case in that manner, but you got to look at all of it. And then we have the unknown, the elephant in the room is the education piece. And right now, if the education piece doesn't get bought down, we're looking at another double-digit tax increase for everybody. And that's in the back of my mind right now too, that, and we don't have any control of that sitting here at this table. But as Tammy will tell you, we sure as heck get the questions in our fingers because we have to end up setting the tax rate. We have no control over it, but the board has to vote and say, yes, that's the rate we're gonna nail you for, with no control over the majority of the increase, so.
Hence my comment in the beginning.
Yeah. We're
This
still-
being a pretty thankless position
thankless.
often.
It is. Once in a while, somebody comes in and thanks us though. All right.
Eva Lewis had her hand raised a little bit.
Thanks. One other thing I just wanted to add is that people can call and email the library for various types of assistance also. So you don't need to be a patron and you don't even need to come in. The library picks up the phone, really responsive. We check email all the time, so people can get assistance that way too. Thanks.
What's the best way to do this? To go fund by fund? Or
Not a bad idea.
how we feel, like,
Yeah,
if we have any challenges?
Yep.
Okay. Well, let's do that. Here we
The
go.
overall budget, now, are you starting at the top of our budget line?
do you want me to pull
Yeah.
the summary sheet?
Alright.
We'll just do it.
So the general fund budget, we have a total in that of 3,528,024. Does that match yours?
3528024.
Anybody have any challenges with that one?
This has, yeah, covered all the different pieces, but there's a few new items, but it's mostly just cost to do business.
Any questions, concerns from the board? Okay. The highway budget, 2,500,429, so
Yep.
they have here. This is the nightmare of salt
Yeah, you can see in operating, that's where the vast majority of,
and metals, okay?
Yep.
Chains, blades,
yeah,
culverts,
vehicle and equipment maintenance materials.
what's driving it? Anybody have any concerns with that budget?
Yes, I don't think we can do anything about those increases.
We're in trouble on that one.
And I think it's actually gonna get worse, believe it or not, with salt at least.
Okay. Special appropriations, we don't have much control over.
Nope, the two increases were petitions, so they slide forward.
Police district, this is the revised number, 893,357. That's removing the deployed employees' time completely and hoping that it's true that she won't be back in that fiscal year.
There's a very small footprint that will allow for that, but it could also be rolled over into part-time hours. Talking like 200 hours kind of a thing. Based on timing and orders and everything. So the footprint would be chief, roads as admin dispatch, 3 full-time level 3 officers, current pay rates. Part of the pay and class study ties into, we're gonna do both union contracts the next fiscal year in preparation of implementation and staff for that. And then some part-time capacity, works out to be about 500 hours of that. Then we haven't had much luck after a local part-time officer got hurt, but if we can find somebody who can put some shifts. We have a little bit of capacity for that, but that's the staffing footprint. That's really what you're looking at, those numbers there.
Shane, page that you're looking at, what page number is it correspond to, digitally to the?
5AII at the very top of it. If that helps.
Is this
164.
164, thank you.
Yeah. There's only 200 pages in this. I don't even have them memorized yet.
And they're all like.
They're all very dense, yeah.
I understand, I'm worried that we're finding ourselves with a fight here, but. Yeah, we'll make it what we have to do.
We cut out everything you could.
And this still comes with that conversation about service level and coverage and all that,
Yeah,
especially when that third slot isn't filled, such as now.
right. There's the hoping. But, okay.
The water fund,
730864.
concerns on that one. That's gonna come with a rate study.
Yep. And these increases, you see them in the operating, the change in health insurance plans for employees. Lost buyouts, by and large, across categories, are lost buyouts and singles, and they are replaced with 2-person or family. Not great, but I have last day, we just keep things.
I may just go cough it out. You're on.
Any concerns on my water fund, will wastewater?
No, things that are unnecessary. Anything you don't use?
Not very far on the ambulance one.
No.
Although that one's, we ought to be looking at. Okay, so that leaves us with the library fund, and what we wanna do there. Trevor, did you get a chance to run the numbers if we keep the same rate of increase that the other positions in the town have?
I did very quickly, keeping in mind that I take the numbers as they're provided to me, so if I missed
Yeah.
anything in the formulas, that would be part of it. but all the changes would just happen in the salary lines, and that would also include social security, retirement, the child care, yeah, social insecurity. Forecasting funding goes there for dark prognostication. So it comes out to, it would take the overall total with those changes to be a 6.4% increase, 458, 406. I didn't touch anything else.
What's the total on that?
458, 406.
And that would be with a what, 3.2% cost of living adjustment?
3.25, yeah. And I just took them across your wage categories and kind of laid them out and dragged them down. So if there's nuance in there that I missed, that would be why I missed it.
And so, that's looking at, in the library budget.
And just to keep in mind, this is what the
Sure, we
number
can.
looks like at the bottom. The trustees could still make additional adjustments. It's in their purview to figure out how to make that number work.
But the number we need to come up with is what that,
Right. You're
tax
putting them on the
dollar.
warning, right?
right? And so. Looking at the number that you have there, that's,
Let me see if I can get it on the screen. If it did.
that's a
And the
6.4%, which is actually even higher than, it's higher than the general.
It's pretty
Oh.
close to our average increase, and then it was 6.2, average increase across all the other departments, obviously some higher, some lower. So you can go turn this into a PDF and open it just around.
What I was trying to figure out is how does that increase translate to the tax dollar amount we
Oh, the
need?
amount to be raised? Yeah, because the non-tax revenue doesn't change. So it makes that 369,330. Which actually, there's a
Which is
couple of the other
another
revenues have
30,000.
increased, yeah, like the library trustees revenue and the Braintree allocation goes up $3,000. It's actually a $250 decrease, I think. Assuming all things are equal.
So if we're consistent across in what we do, and the study next year picks up the library employees as well as our union employees, our non-union employees.
Yeah, the intent
All
would get
that.
everybody, there's a question on there about whether or not I'd be in it too. Everybody's in it, everybody goes in this infrastructure. You guys already make too much money, so feel like $1 a.
When you show up at 1099 next year, they're increasing the number of 99s to next year. Yeah, so you want to get to 99.
And we could even structure this. This is one of those things we'll put together an RFP after the town meeting. We all budgets are approved, general funds are approved. We'll start to work together. We can do a project. We'll invite different staff members in. It's not any secret. We just want the data.
So that 369 number isn't a consistent approach with all the employees across
The
the board, right?
That's if you just took a 3.25 and then played it out across the salary lines. Yeah, and because that's the base increase. Where you see some larger percentage ones, it's because we hired into a different number in this fiscal year. We made a different adjustment. But from where they're starting right now, it's 3.25 in the next year. It just looks different from budget year to budget year. If that makes sense. If we had a salary slot for 25 of 70, but we hired the person at 75, we had to report on that. The budget to budget was figured.
Which has to be.
So it's 3.25 from where they got hired.
And so that, that gives us consistency with wages, but it also, there's another 20,000 in there for the operating increases. Right,
Yes.
and that still brings us to that 369.
That's the amount to be raised by taxes, yeah, so 458, 406, and that's their non-tax revenue doesn't change. It's a 6.4% overall increase, the operating budget doesn't change, at least, obviously the trustees can move things around after this, but just based on this quick
That'd be my preferred approach. Just for the consistency and then,
Wait, so the other line items go up with what's asked, or we're just using our percentage?
so what we did was look at increasing the wage line items by
Right.
the 3
But the rest
1/4.
of
And
the-
then that automatically calculates the change in social security and retirement, all those pieces. Healthcare was already adjusted in there.
Yeah,
According
healthcare
to
would stay
plan.
consistent, yeah.
And the operating budget stays as they proposed.
This doesn't adjust things like workers' comp, things where there might be other calculations, they just let those where they are.
Take
They're,
off.
they're not talking.
So
Also, under the hood of a car, that's not really, so I have to be very careful.
I feel like that's the easiest way to do this. I do feel like they probably should have been asking for this kind of increase over time. They didn't. I'm not against like helping them adjust, but like my problem is like the amount all in 1 year. So like the fact that it seems like their wages haven't adjusted at the same level other town employees have.
I think
Over
they
time.
have. They've gotten increases every year, right? There's been like a cost of living increase every year.
Whatever the
That
increase
you-
was, is in the contract. They're not
They've
adjustments
been
like
proposed
other,
to the rest of the town employees. And the rest of the town employees were having them go through this study to figure out what's right and then a transition plan. My struggle is stepping outside of that with just one group of employees.
we have a certain amount of latitude in there within the budget as long as we stay within the amount that the town, that gets voted on town meeting. So that was when we were talking before, and I said, you know, my hope is that you'll give this, we'll walk away with a number, you know, what's gonna go on the ballot for the library, and then we will go back as a board and decide what we want to do about that. You know, we've increased the amount of money that we've contributed as trustees to the operating budget in an effort to make this a little bit more tolerable. We know it was a big bite. But so that we're odd that way, you know, because the trustees do have control over money and a certain amount of discretion about how that money gets spent, including around salaries. So I will, like I said, give us a number and then we'll walk away and we'll adjust.
I agree with your math, I do. Or the math.
And then I think you look at the entire study for all the employees and where they need to be and have a schedule of how you get to that point.
I think when we do that, I think we're gonna have to start having some really hard conversations about what we offer from our town government to our community, because I think the level of service that's being demanded is not in scope with the folks who live here and affordability. And so I think what we're gonna find when we start adjusting those is we're gonna have to stop, we're gonna have to limit what we offer as a
Sustainability thing.
100%.
It's a tough line to walk, because one of the things that makes those services so valuable in places like the library so valuable is the things like the lack of affordable childcare and the number of people that you have that are working multiple jobs, and I'm gonna start to cough again. So you have to, I mean, somehow you have to support your community.
Yeah, and there's other ways to do that too.
The rec department does that too.
The rec department does a great
There are a
job.
lot of kids that get dumped at the rink, for example.
It might be time to get all the different resources that are around town together to figure out who's on first and what are the real needs and who's meeting them, because we've got competition out there, right? Which is good. We all like choices, but
But also I say, from the budget committee's point of view, I've been saying this for a couple of years, that this conversation in general was something,
Gives you a little more.
that it was gonna get really hard.
Yeah.
To do the budget.
Well, it's here.
Yes.
And I think next year's gonna be worse.
It's gonna be.
So just for clarity's sake, my memory is that the warning includes an article for the library that lists both the appropriation and the total operating budget. Both of those numbers are included, is that
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, the article will have the total budget number, then the amount to be raised by taxes, the amount of anticipated non-tax revenue. These are the three numbers.
So in a way, the trustees are going to be constrained by whatever you decide the bottom line is for the budget, and that's just what the tax appropriation is that you're willing to.
Right, well, we've just talked about, were two numbers, a
Mhm.
total budget of 458, 406, and
Right,
a tax revenue of 369, 338. The difference will go on as non-tax revenue.
right.
Yep.
Which does not leave them with the opportunity, for instance, to say, oh, just kidding, we'd like to throw $100,000 into the budget.
Correct.
So they're kind of stuck. Got it.
Creates a footprint, but then there's the latitude for the trustees.
You can move
to
it
within
between line items, you can stay within it, though.
So yeah, this is from the draft that was in the packet that was received, so yeah. Total expenditure raised by taxes, not tax revenue. Same structure for all the funds. Yes, I don't think it's.
This may be a Tammy question, but, I had someone ask me if in the town report, there will be, there used to be, a few years ago, fiscal year 25 actuals and then fiscal year 26. So is that gonna be possible this year? To have an actual,
Yeah. It's tied to audit delivery date.
yeah, I know last year was,
We've had a
No,
hell
yeah.
of a time with this arrangement,
yeah,
which is why we're updating the RFP and.
I would, as a betting person, I'll bet that's not gonna happen on time this year.
no,
But hopefully maybe.
Which may be why the RFP's being sharpened up.
Well, we might be able to, if we do get some sense of timing, then we can we've done paper inserts for things, we can amend the PDF copy there. Some different things we can use as tools if there's something in
if it's
between.
possible.
And some of that's just because we're up against that printer deadline is
Right.
Monday, Tuesday.
Yeah, it's not ideal.
Now, the goal is to, with a new auditor, set a schedule so that this is all in hand in November.
Start in March.
Let's move this. Any thoughts on those two numbers?
I'm in agreement.
With those? Okay, so, just need a motion to adopt those budgets.
And then how do we do do we have to name the numbers for the library since they're being edited?
How about you have me read them out? If you want, just the total numbers per fund. Because all you're doing is adopting the budgets, and then we'll put those in the minutes with just the general fund. If
The
you want.
total dollar amount, and
Mhm.
the
Dollar amount,
warning
what you
has
do.
the breakdown.
Yep.
And we're adopting that tonight too, so
Okay.
it'll give both documents in the same set of minutes.
I'm ready to move it.
Make myself a note. General fund, fiscal 27, 3528024. Highway fund, 2500429. Library fund, 458406. Special approps, they're on. 893,357 is the police fund. Water fund is 730,864. And then the water fund is 990,077.
Motion to approve as presented.
Second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Do you wanna do the warning while we're at it, or we gotta come back to the warning?
Coming back to it, cause you do have those, there's the Australian ballot question and then the capital reserve question to answer too.
Okay, so we have a request for an article to create a capital reserve for the Kimball Library. I thought this was coming on a written petition. What happened to the petition?
It was not on the book.
Anybody know what happened to the petition for this?
I believe it was started too late, didn't pick up signatures.
I needed like 180, right?
Yeah, and they did it in like 10 days, came short.
10 days, it was not like.
It was
3
out
months.
for, yeah.
Oh, then I'm
Nice.
not sure. I must be misinformed.
So then it would fall under your general discretionary capability too.
Where are we, with the whole capital planning?
The RFP, you guys approved of that in November. We've got to fill in some of the square footage numbers in one of the attachments. We've just shelved it to have a happy, fun January.
It's been in January,
It's,
it's actually healthy all of a sudden.
well, I don't think it's healthy. I think it's the staff time that's been dragged off onto
So,
public record requests from library trustee.
There's been a few,
Private citizen.
yeah,
As a
She's
citizen.
on as library trustee. All her requests are coming in for the library and the library trustee.
as such.
so, yeah.
Yeah.
So we need to fill in some square footage numbers, and then we can get that out. But that would be ready, that was always gonna be ready for capital budgeting fiscal 28 and beyond. That's part of why when you saw the fiscal 27 capital plan the last couple times, didn't have building projects on it. Because the idea with that is to get a condition assessment of all the buildings, be able to identify the projects and then prioritize them, and then we're not sort of trying to parse out in real time which ones should go where. We've got sort of that professional opinion that here's how they all fit, here's an order of magnitude of cost, we can better plan for it.
When we look at capital funding, for buildings, the ideal position is to have the flexibility to do them in the order that those come, right? Like versus a reserve fund for the town hall, a reserve fund for the police station, a reserve fund for the East Randolph Fire Station, and like every building having their own versus having one, similar to how we allocated the 140,000 out of the reserve fund, saved. Having one bigger fund gives that additional flexibility.
It's all set up for the system we have in place now, yeah.
So can you walk me through the options for creating a reserve fund? So we have one, but was that voted on, or does the select board have the authority to later to like create reserve funds, or how does that work?
The building reserve fund was created, I don't know, it was inherited, I don't know the full provenance of it. The request here would be to put it on the warning and the voters would authorize it. I can show you some draft language.
Sure, but I guess, is there any other way to make a reserve fund?
There are different ways to do sinking funds and some other things that function as reserve funds, but for cleanliness and then transparency. I'm talking about it, a reserve fund in this sense, would be the best idea. As an option, if you want to create something separate for a separate building.
And then who's in charge of the reserve fund, and how is that mechanism? Because we have monies, two different boards here, so how would that work?
I think that's part of what would have to be worked out mechanically. Most of the time with the capital reserves, they come from the fund of use, so to speak. So pavings, highway funds, for example.
How is the paving reserve fund created?
We have a transfer that is in the general fund. There's a line item toward the bottom of that section. It sets an amount and that goes across. We could also augment it with the receipt of grants if we received any other kinds of funds we weren't expecting for paving. It's never happened, but
Yes, it did.
Theoretically,
Such a sexy.
It did.
thing to do
We
for-
did.
yeah, people don't even
Furnace
request
Road.
for asphalt, yeah.
That's how Furnace Road got
Hmm.
funded.
Yeah.
It was a surprise grant. Somebody happened to be sitting where they were talking about whether it could happen in a short period of time. Yes, it can.
So I think
What
there-
would you like?
there'd be some conversation about where the transfer comes out of at some point. Simplest would be follows that rule of origin, whatever you want, so it comes out of the library fund as a capital reserve transfer, goes into separately created reserve. The building reserve's a little different in that it's in the general fund, it's raised out of the general fund the same way, but can be used. Is used for projects across different funds. It's really the one example of that kind of cross fund pollination.
When you look at the building study that's gonna be completed, it'll give not just projects, but, will there be some level of a dollar value tied to those projects? Are we trying to get, cause it's going out, right? Somebody else didn't do it. It'd be good if it had like a list of sort of what the work, the building, by building, what the work is and what the dollar value is, and then a priority model of how to,
We do call for that and then the
Very
order of
nice.
magnitude cost, yeah. Or some sort of cost estimate, but yeah, what's the prioritization based on the assessment, facility condition assessment?
so it
Score.
may be a good idea to wait until you have the result of those to decide how many reserve funds you want out there and how many moving pieces to get that work done.
Yeah, I mean, that is one of the outcomes, it's we boost what's in the building reserve, we leave it as is, and we're better at planning for it, or we create separate reserve funds for essentially for each of the buildings, every town has a different model where you pay or they used to, I forget what they call it, but it's basically like a building fee, and then it goes sort of across, and they assessed it differently based off a 5-year building plan. There's different models to fund these things, but functionally, it's a transfer to a reserve in some respect.
So, let's say we have an overarching capital reserve fund. Can then we decide, like, kind of parcel that out for those buildings that we like the 5-year plan sort of a thing, and like each year we put in a certain percentage of that project sort of a thing? Like, is that like, that'd be our accounting, but that would be our.
Right now, use of capital funds, reserve transfers, they're part of the budget that you create and are approved by the voters, so it's still part of that process. Whereas if this one goes into the library, it does create some differences because the trustees have different statutory parameters. And
If it went there, right? The other alternative is to have a library reserve fund that the select board controls.
Yeah.
So then we get into the same mess we're kind of in now, but the,
Yeah, it doesn't say, you wanna say that there's a problem and we're looking to solve a problem.
well, we got a problem across the board with a lot of buildings in the town, and so some of it is like a study is gonna come out with even some buildings themselves, the whole building needs to be replaced. Like, you haven't been in it, everybody ought to take a tour of the police station. Nobody should need to work in those conditions, and the Randolph Center garage is one good wind and snowstorm from being on the ground, like, it's not to paint it too bad, but like, we've got some big items coming, and sometimes when you look at that and how you fund it, having that full picture of what it is and then a strategy of how to do it is easier than having each one broken out separate. Amy?
I think you raised the question, Stephanie, and then you touched on it again, Trini, about who controls the money in a capital reserve fund. I talked with a staff attorney at Vermont League of Cities and Towns, the Secretary of State. If a capital reserve fund is established for Kimball Library, the select board has control of that money. So I
That
don't
comes
think
with
there's
a
any lack of
complication,
clarity. Well, I
Not
don't
gonna
know.
get that
I
one any
mean,
easier, are they, Robin?
No. But it's nice
Popcorn
to
and
have,
cheese. Yeah.
But it does, I mean, if you have a capital reserve, but the idea, and I think when I think of it like a sinking fund.
Mhm.
You know, that that you decide on a certain amount of money and that money goes in there and it goes across, whatever is left over at the end of the year, travels into the next fiscal year and gradually you accumulate enough money to, oh, I don't know, fix our front steps, or any of it, paint the walls. Have you been in the reference room, ever? I've been on the board for 10 years and there's still a big white square, where it needs to be painted. And when we have put capital requests in, I don't know what happens to them, This way there would be, it would let us plan. It would be a designated amount of money that we knew was there that would allow us to plan. And you would control it, so you would have to approve it. But for us, it's prudent management of a historic building. And it's again, trying to think ahead, like you said, Alyssa, about the salaries. It's trying to think ahead and be able to parse those expenses out.
Can I ask a question? Sorry. So I don't understand why you guys had it in your budget to fix the heat pump, but not the paint. So what is
We
it?
didn't have it in our budget to fix the heat.
Well,
That was the problem. It was a surprise.
Well, okay, but there's a maintenance line item, and so the paint doesn't seem like a capital project to me.
It's not.
And so.
No,
So
it's an example.
So, but I mean, that's like kind of the thing that we've dealt with Chandler too, like what's the little thing and what's the big thing, and like what is the, and I mean, my concern with creating its own reserve fund is then, it's also limiting too, and so the library it's a historic building, it's a big project, and so you're not talking about $10,000 here or there necessarily, you're talking about big projects, and I think we need to do a better job as a town overall of which we're taking the steps to do, of taking a full inventory and then kind of saying like, okay, where do we need to be and how do we need to get there? That's my hesitation of establishing this right now. Because I feel like it's going to have the opposite problem at some point where there's not enough money in there, and then it's going to be like, well, that's your problem, sort of a thing, because you have your own reserve fund, you have to deal with that. That's all you get. And I would rather not get in that side of things either.
Yeah, Tamara had a comment.
I've always been confused by the ownership of the building by the town, but the maintenance for the building being put on the trustees and the library itself. I think Chandler may be the same way.
Chandler's all different too.
Yeah.
Different in the same way or different in a different?
Different in a different way.
In a different way.
And I think this is just an attempt to kind of have the town take a little more responsibility for the building itself, if it owns the building.
Yes and no. We just allocated a year ago or whatever it was, 140,000 to a capital project there, right? And was 3 years ago. When we do others.
Who's got five?
In my first year or so.
And so it's not, there's a maintenance line item in their budget and which does some minor maintenance type stuff. It's that, in this way, we're the same with Chandler. What's minor maintenance, what's major maintenance? Although I think we've got Chandler pretty well sorted out over the years from back and forth, but, a capital reserve fund is for bigger projects, right? It's not to replace the doorknob on the door, it's to replace the whole front entry.
Right.
kind of
Which is
thing.
what the grants have been trying to do to people.
But you got a lot of years, right, or a large amount that would have to go into a reserve fund each year, depending what the project was, and somewhere you gotta figure out sort of what does that look like, and
I think it was,
are we better to do it townwide on all the buildings in a reserve fund, or each building having their own, because as soon as you put the money in there, now it's pegged for only that building.
no, I don't
Sort of, what's
disagree
that?
with your idea that all the buildings should be in the one. It seems like the most reasonable thing to do, because like you said, you can kind of move it around a little bit more easily that way. I think this was just a conversation.
Yep. We've got some big ones coming.
Yeah.
Or somebody, please.
Well, instead of separating it, I mean, if we know there's big things coming, talking about plant, like, is there a way to put it out for a vote to increase the capital fund?
It's in there, right? The building, we just approved the allocation to the building reserve
Yeah.
fund.
But
At a level from last, or at a level funding. The idea being we'd have for next year's budget conversation, some sense of what does it take.
We don't have the number to go on to know what it's at yet.
That's been the challenge, is what are you plugging it into? We have those needs, but we don't always have the dollar amounts associated, and how do you balance everything?
And we're putting $85,000 into the facility reserve fund. And then there's a building and grounds reserve fund of 11,000 too.
You could, when you warn town meeting, there's that surplus question that allocates surplus funds across guys. You could swap out one of those or make a change there, but the thing with that is that there isn't any guarantee. You don't know how much and if it'll
It
be
could be
there.
upside down, then we'll take the money back out of those reserve funds.
But that's sort of
Just
the,
kidding, we're not allowed to. Anybody quote me or send me off to the Attorney General's office. I've been there a few times, but.
I will observe also that the town has the tool of putting things up for bond. When it comes to big projects like replacing the entire Randolph Center garage or whatever.
The police department.
Like a new building. So
There
bonding
is
is an option.
bonding authority, but you have to go to a town vote on it,
Mhm.
and you're also capped. And right now, we're capped. And
Because of
so,
being
because of
overly
other
rated.
debt that we have,
I thought a couple of bonds had got paid off in the past year.
not enough to get to a bond of.
At this
that
very
could put out
moment, but in the future.
In the future.
Yes.
it helps us set up and plan for those big ones too, so we can smooth out those first payments too. That show up as whatever fund, debt service line items.
But you gotta pay it back, too,
Yeah.
right? And then that
Of course.
payment has to go into that fund.
Yeah.
Right, so
There's a sweet spot there too, between how
we're
much do you
still in
borrow.
that affordability, which is why your bonds, when you go to issue bonds, you go to the municipal bond bank, where everybody goes,
Mhm.
and they look at your overall financials of the town and say,
Mhm.
you know, are you outside of that sweet spot, basically? Like, are you putting your town into a point where you're gonna be taxing people way more than they're gonna be willing to pass a budget for? It's kind of, it's an affordability. It's like when you go to get a loan, you got a debt to income ratio, town has the same
Okay.
thing.
And if there are sub-capital categories, painting came up, maybe we can connect and see if we can motivate
I
some of
hear,
our resources.
I hear Tammy is really good.
Tammy loves that stuff too.
Does she love 16-foot ceilings? Not so much.
Guessing it wouldn't phase her, but I think we got some buildings and grounds guys that can do it too.
That's what I'm thinking, in these cold
Just saying.
weather periods are, these are the types of projects that are good to schedule for that, keep folks busy. So if you have those categories, maybe we can, might not work, but maybe we can knock something off.
Fantastic.
Okay. Picking up that we're not creating a separate reserve fund tonight. We're waiting for the report next year, or you're waiting for the report next year. Just to be clear. Robin and I are gonna watch from the GOC.
That's right. Last one in hand.
Yeah. Those things we can't have here tonight.
That's it.
Yourself,
Just water. Rovers get started. All right, let's go over the town meeting warning.
So I'm gonna show you the one that's already up, based on your conversation just now. This is your baseline warning. We'll have to adjust this question here. I'll make that adjustment here in a second, so I can read that one out to you.
Good night, everybody.
Just the one, yeah, the one to point out that's remaining would be, and it was mentioned very briefly, if we want to revisit the Australian ballot conversation, it would get into this section. I don't know how many people recall a couple of years ago, it has to be from the floor, sort of reflects, it's sort of the grand irony if we want to
I love this.
more people to vote, but the people who'd be most interested in voting by Australian ballot have to make it
Yep.
to that Saturday meeting.
Voting from the floor to not vote from the floor.
Right.
I
But it would go there if you wanted to go, and it's a simple one, it's the same language we've used before. I don't know why Word is not loaded on this computer, I apologize, I'll put things into videos from now on so we can. So I'll just read, it's a very simple one, I'll just read you what that would look like.
I don't know if I'm.
Shall the town of Randolph vote on all public questions about Australian ballot? And really what it would take care of in the case of this particular warning are budget committee, in this case. But if in the
But
future
we vote that and it's next year, then it would go into play,
Yeah.
right? Not this year. And so then anybody who really wants to be on the budget committee would have to fill out a petition to get on the ballot, correct?
But then they also wouldn't have to be present, right?
Right.
Right.
Which would actually be probably.
It opens up and gives more people a say. I know there's people who feel like it deflates the town meeting and the intent of town meeting. But when you sit there and you've got some pretty big items being decided by 30 people, that's wrong.
I think it gives an opportunity to make town meeting more like of a like chosen discussion instead of it being, you know, that might actually attract more people to come to have a town discussion instead of.
I mean, if we did the ballot, everything's by ballot, I mean, I agree. I don't know if it's worth throwing back out there again now.
one of the challenges we had last time was that it was at the very end like this, because this is how this is structured, and it was one of the more grueling, I think, police district conversations. So by the time we got to this question, there were like 46 people in there. It was some crazy number that voted to keep the old
But that's
system.
what proved our point,
Right.
right? That was the issue we were trying to address, was a very small percentage of the town
Right.
was making decisions for the entire town.
It ended up being an exercise in irony, but probably not much else. So it'll go on as Article 27.
We also can change that on the town charter that we haven't started yet.
That would be another way to go about it if you do create a charter. But one of the other questions is maybe a way to do the appointment question of the clerk treasurer from the floor. If everything was done by Australian ballot, that one would have been done that way, and it would have, that was another one that was 44 votes determined, I think, 46 was a majority of the people in the room, and that's what they determined, that's what the process was, but was that representative or not?
And there's also
You can do
people
it
that,
either way.
and there's also people who voted who weren't actual residents then too, so it took away from the validity of the vote that actually happened. Where when people actually have to come into town to vote, they're actually registered voters and we know that they're residents, versus guessing by our JPs. Who were barely there also, they barely had enough people to count the votes.
Me and Rose were working on all that today, so.
Sure, yeah.
They were.
So, it's a much more, well-organized group now, for sure, thanks to those two, but yeah, the validity of the whole vote was actually, a little questionable as well, which kind of makes it even more of a reason, I mean, the ironies were.
There's plenty of reasons for it to be out there, but I'm wondering if we, is there a way we can get it earlier on the town meeting day agenda of what they do? Because
Start leaving.
yeah, they all left, and what was left behind were the
Pirates.
I think we could talk to the moderator about if there's some parliamentary way to move this one
Well,
forward.
instead of walking through the town report for the first 2 hours of the meeting, it would be nice if we could move to the action items and then they can walk through the report if they want to.
Yeah.
Like, cause we lost some people that had some really good things they wanted to contribute to the discussion because it just dragged so. Everybody can't spend a whole day at Chandler.
I just know now to bring more snacks.
Next
Well, we
2
kind
years.
of do need to do a town charter at some point, but we don't have one, just kind of weird.
We don't have to have one. It's not a mandatory thing. And now local option tax, you don't have to have a charter to do.
Yeah, so they changed that.
So you could, one of the things Larry's been after is what, I know, but you don't have to have a town charter anymore to do those, like. There's a few things that you could make changes on when you did a charter, but it's not.
It'd be an interesting exercise to kind of go through though, because like, it wasn't a problem until it was a problem. And like, what other things are not covered by our, merger doc that might come up in the next 5-10 years, or maybe not, but like, what other things are we missing there? And that's what we kind of keep coming up against is, we had a lot of, gentlemen's agreements and things here in Randolph, and it worked. But now we're getting bigger and different, and some of those things aren't working, and so when you pull these policies from 20 years ago, or merger doc from 22 years ago, it'd be like, this doesn't actually help us figure out what to do with this. But just to kind of get a good policy in place.
This isn't on the agenda, so we probably shouldn't bring this up, but like, it would be interesting to know if you had an agreement on the merger document, and then you're going for charter change, like, does the charter just automatically replace that? There's no holdover of, this is what we agreed to.
Unless it gets baked into the new charter. Because the charter becomes the new, I mean, what a charter is basically is specific to a section of state statute. So it would replace this weird articles of merger, which is it's a pseudo charter. Doesn't appear in the list, it isn't recorded anywhere. It's all done in the 80s, it wasn't active the legislature because we're Dillon's rule state, and this is where we are with this weird, not even Frankenstein's monster, it's like the piece that fell off. It's different.
It'd be an interesting, interesting conversation.
That's what we would, I mean, if we start exploring the idea of a charter, then the idea of voting by ballot or not could also be more widely discussed, in different ways than just at town meeting for those moments and times. So all that to say, I'm not sure that it's valuable put up to vote this town meeting, even though I think we should explore it again. If that made any sense. I'm kicking the rock down the road, I guess, the can down the road here a little bit. But if everyone feels strongly about putting it on, I'm happy to add the article and pass that.
I'm willing to try and get you to show up.
I mean, it did get out there. More people might know. I mean, that was like in the Herald, and they're trying to steal some meeting, and we got people there. I mean, so maybe that's valuable.
I forgot.
Better than
Forgot that we were
high.
speaking.
It was under,
What's that?
it was under a false. some
Yeah.
false statements and whatnot, but
And
I'm
it doesn't-
okay with putting it back on.
It doesn't eliminate the ability to have an event, like you were saying, it would give you a little more latitude to shape that event. But you could still have towns,
Town meeting.
the towns have been having like, it's like a pie night, some place where just an array of nice people they brought in and they got together and shaped it differently, like have general conversations and small group ones. I mean,
That seemed to be what we were hearing people were missing.
Mhm.
And we don't have that now. Right? We have a walk through the town report.
Yeah. And there's not that much that does get voted on, you know, like it's just kind of weird.
It's like a longer, weirder version of the informational night, which is statutorily required piece for the Australian ballot ads. I mean, I think
Nobody
you could
shows up
make a
for that
case to the
one.
monitor, yeah. I think you could make a case to the monitor, you'd be like, this isn't, we're not even supposed to go through these, we already did this piece, but. I'm not suggesting, I want to be very clear, it's a weird, because you have to do the other one.
Yeah.
Because we do the things by Australian ballot.
I don't have strong feelings either way, so if everyone else wants to put it on there, I'm fine with like giving it a shot.
Go for it. I might as well have something fun to do that day. Oh, wait, I'm off the board the night before.
The night before?
Didn't it? The night before town meeting.
Does that make me,
Even though
sad
it's
that-
Saturday, I feel
So we
like,
go to the Tuesday? 'Cause that's
Yeah.
actually-
I have her sit down, so
Your
yeah,
turn is
I think
Tuesday. So you do want that on?
Let's go for it. Alyssa's gonna drum up some participants.
So let me
Turn
just
is on you.
revise
I
that,
don't feel strongly about it, but
A lot of people talk about they didn't have a say in different things that they're doing from the floor, but they were all missing by the late hour.
yeah, I mean, it would be nice if we could move some of the voting stuff to the beginning, if that's.
I think it would be great if we had more people that had a say in what some of these decisions are.
Yeah.
just make this change here.
That make 27 articles.
27 articles, yep. Let me just add these up real quick, because we've been caught like that before. I'm just redoing all that. 458, 406 was the number you got. So we had 369, 338, 289, 068. We get 458, 406. Okay. I can save this PDF and get it so I can put it up on the screen if you want to see it.
Yeah.
Yeah, let me just do, I could do it all from here. For the folks at home, this is the really exciting technologically based part of it. We'll still
So
have all
just
that.
answering, there's a question online from Eva about what we do for outreach. It's a lot. It's in the town report. It's talked about on various sites.
Bring it,
Town meeting day is a state holiday for state employees. So
We're
we
gonna-
can get advertised there.
print it in the paper as well. Tammy and I were talking about that. Do at least once there. There'll be different posts online. There are the physical postings. There's also the notice of the town report, which gives you another bite because the warning goes in there.
Mhm.
Online copies of that. Some of the basics.
We asked Chandler to put it on their sign.
Oh, yeah, that's a good
Yeah,
idea.
so-
I was just like, should have a banner, if we're gonna keep doing.
We're gonna keep doing town meeting?
Yeah.
Bigger propose we just like it done. Hang on. Sorry, That was also a joke.
So
We have a
here,
question of whether, are you the secretary or the clerk? Because our rules of procedure call you a clerk
That's correct.
and our voting calls you a secretary. So we
So-
could put both, right?
Secretary and clerk?
oh, on the
Secretary
signature
slash
line,
clerk.
secretary.
Brandon Brandy. So yeah, well,
I'll put both.
Wow, you're holding down two jobs on this overpaid job. Want to talk about a livable wage?
So we keep the highlights in just so we go through, we double check them. Standard language up top, the dates have been changed, the,
24 needs to go to 27.
well, articles 1 through 24 to be voted by Australian ballot, so
Oh,
that's why
okay.
yeah. There's that, Saturday, February 28th, 10 AM at Chandler. This is the part you'll have to decide when you warn town meeting. We've got to do a public informational meeting for the Australian ballot items. We can talk about the whole thing, but Monday, February 23rd at 5 PM is what we
Anybody
picked.
got a problem with that date?
The school is on the 26th, so we don't have a conflict with them. We did 1 year, I think. This year we do not, if we stay on Monday.
Okay, that works for me.
And that one we do hybrid town meeting. We don't, though we were talking about using the owl to record, so people may not be able to participate in the voting, but they may be able to watch, depending on how we set that. That was Tammy's idea, so I wanna make sure that.
Before we scroll through those positions there, I know Tammy is the one who probably populated those, but the year that she actually ran for election, she didn't list it in the warning, or we didn't, and we approved it without her. So, can we just take a moment to make sure that we have everybody right now?
She and Judy worked together to put this one together.
Okay. So we're feeling pretty confident. I don't see anything missing, but I just thought it'd be worth to slow down and go through that real quick. Slow down and go through it real quick. Secretary and clerk right here. Sorry. Wait.
It's
Oh.
not water in that cup, is it?
I know. And slow down and go fast for a minute, right?
Think well.
Yeah.
I think, yes, that's all the positions,
Okay.
because hers will be next year.
Yep, yeah, because she was elected to the remainder of an unexpired term last year.
Yep.
Yep.
Yep, okay, and we only have one lister for election and.
Yep.
Okay.
Looks like Uncle Dennis was last year and Mimi was the year before.
Uncle Dennis.
Uncle Dennis, yeah, we love it when Uncle Dennis is back to Florida. The junk food increases, the stories get better. Now,
And so the numbers are corrected.
yep, so these are the ones we read out, so went through and added these all up. 3528024 for the general fund, amount to be raised, non-tax revenue. The fiscal years are correct. We had that issue 1 year. This is the updated library number, the 458406, 369338. And then that number didn't change because their non-tax revenue stays the same. So that's the only change in those numbers from the draft. Police district same. These were updated based on the changes from Tuesday. Now, so this number certainly changed. This one, we didn't do anything different with the non-tax revenue. Want Scott to charge twice as much for fingerprints, but
We wouldn't do it. I got some movement at least.
yeah. 26, 27 again, water district, 730, 864. The reason we don't have the other numbers here is these are the enterprise funds, these are the user rates, and those get set after the budget's set through a separate process.
Your date is wrong there. Expended for water district expenses in 26.
School year 26.
26, okay, yeah. This is why we do this multiple times. This has already had many eyeballs of it. So I've got that on this one that we'll use. So 27, Sewer district, 26 through 27, 990,077, same thing as the water district with the numbers, fiscal year 2027. Ambulance, 26 through 27, 429,661, fiscal year 2027. We might have an interesting conversation with them about the second half of the fiscal year because they're on a calendar year, and if they try to budget for an increase, but the voters only gave us this, we might find ourselves at cross purposes. All the appropriations, obviously, when you sign it, we'll take these out. These were just placeholders, so you knew which ones increased. By petitions, or both petition increases. So here's the full list. And we ran down a few of the pieces we were missing. You're stuck in inboxes or had to make their way here. Those are for ones that did increase. The craft center, for example. She sent that over. Just had to find it. Article 24. This is the one we've had for general fund surplus. No need for emergency reserve fund shortfall. We've been putting into paving. We did add the building reserve.
How much do we, is there an average that we have, or I'm sure it's not like 1.8, like the schools does. We'll take some of that though.
No, but in the general fund, we've tended to run the last few years, but that's because nobody works for us part of the time. When you have 4 employees, what's your budget for, 24? You can save a little scratch. So that's really how we've been running surpluses. There's no other, we just haven't always filled everything. And there doesn't tend to be the same overtime pressures there, because it's really just rec and buildings and grounds that would be eligible for some level of regular overtime depending on what's going on. Kayla occasionally, finance occasionally has a couple hours, but it's project specific.
So we're gonna have a match requirement on the North Randolph Road Bridge. Where would that come out of? Is that maybe?
Our bridge and culvert reserve should have a sufficient amount. It would depend on where that project lands, so we may have to come back and have a conversation of, hey, this bridge is gonna cost.
Oh, but is that where the reserve should go instead of into the highway paving reserve?
It could, but I think based on the timeline we're on right now, you probably get a bite at that apple for next month. Might get another bite. You could put it to the bridge and culvert reserve. And that's where we would make it at. We could stash it and then make it out of there. That had been the plan. And that's got a fairly healthy balance. I don't have it with me, but.
So we could do a 3-way split.
Yeah.
Just so you're not biting it all off in one year.
What's the match gonna be?
Depends what the cost is. If it's $1 million fix, you're talking $100,000.
Yeah, because we're still 90.
It's in the 90-10.
I think
I don't think it's gonna be $1 million, but I was using that because it was easy math. Didn't tax me too much.
I was gonna go with it too, yeah. 2.5, 3, I don't think would be too wild. We could do armoring, it's a weird alignment. It's gonna be a long span, which, the waterway isn't.
I bet you're looking in the, I bet you're in there. I bet you're up around $500,000 for that.
So we're spending around 50,000
I
ish.
think we're in the 50,000-60,000.
And how much do we have in the culvert fund and? Do we have a
Well, you don't wanna empty it
Right,
either, right? Like your one bad day of a failed full-size culvert. So,
As I was thinking.
it's
That's what you always said, you one bad year.
one bad
Okay, I've heard you say that.
day away.
Let's see, oh, here we go. Yeah, currently the balance is 153. So at the $1 million range, but yeah, we're up around 2.5. Stormwater reserve would be another one that we've tapped that for quite a bit, and we're gonna use that for the park and ride balance, so. Or match.
Do we have any?
Gravel road reserve would be another, if we moved stuff around, cause that one's fairly healthy,
Do we have,
323.
any, sense of how much surplus we might, for?
I don't at this point, it's, I don't even like to speculate until we get close to the almost end with the auditors, because
What if we do 20 to the building reserve, 40 to the paving, and 40 to the bridge and culvert?
I'm gonna have to say those again, because my brain did not, it held 20, but it didn't hold.
You
it
got the
correctly.
20 for the building reserve.
Yeah.
And then change the 80 to 40 and add another 40 to the bridge and culvert.
It's- that version.
We did get rid of a bridge, right? The
That's true.
Central Street Bridge. We got the state to agree they own it. Wonder how that happened. Paper, scissors.
So we've got 20 to the building reserve, 40 to the paving reserve, and 40 to the bridge and culvert reserve.
Yep. And we're all looking at the screen to watch you type and it's not.
Gonna show up here, yeah. I don't, this was supposed to be set up so it could be a workstation and then also the tech station, but none of the Microsoft Word products apparently are set up for use.
Can we move Article 25, the wording of that, swap it with 27?
I think so.
This gets a little earlier and we don't have to sit and listen through everybody's telling us everything they did to that. Just trying to figure out where we can save people in the room.
Is it your favorite part?
That's it.
We talk a lot about the first, but this is the only place I've experienced that particular task every year.
So why don't we get rid of it?
You could try. I'm not a voter, so I can't.
Well, we're the one doing the warning.
But you're approving it.
Well, there's no reason to have it on there. It's in their town report.
Yeah, it's a standard.
You said it wasn't in other towns, right?
Not just that we haven't spent any time, we don't spend as much time on it as a,
Does it have to be on there?
that's the part I'm not sure, but I wouldn't wanna take it off and find out.
Ah, the fuck, end of it.
But by moving it toward the end, you do give the option of, wanna stay for that you may, if you wanna vote it, you could do it.
As we all get up and walk back.
You take some of these.
Fun next year.
Did you change my title there? Great.
To clerkatary?
Mm.
I did not yet. I should,
It's
secretary.
in the last
Do you want them in alphabetical order, or do you want secretary first?
A lot of credit.
Question. Let's do alphabetical order.
Okay.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Clerk, do you want a hyphen, or a slash?
Slash, please, thank you.
Slash to the right?
You know, the best feeling was the first time I said it out loud. I was like, yeah, I'm
Check.
good with this.
Do you want it set up as a compound modifier?
Yes, please. That is, that's great.
As soon as I told him, and it's, yeah,
It's the hyphen you had to make a man-eating shark. Man-eating shark.
What's that?
It's the hyphen you had to make a man-eating shark into a man-eating shark.
Oh, okay, I like that.
That is not a first for me. I had to
Oh,
give a
boy.
lesson on compound modifiers in one town to settle a dispute between board members as it related to minutes.
wow. See, we haven't made you do that.
So nope, sorry, you didn't get there first.
We'll find something else.
Yeah, but, no, there's plenty, I'm good. I got a lifetime.
I think we still have each other, it's not time.
Is that
I'm just
what
taking all the
we're
highlights
I
out.
think you're getting giddy.
I'll show you a final version here. I just take the highlights out, make those changes. And then when you make the motion, one of the things that I'll do is just take the approved version and put it in the minutes as well. either as an attachment at the end, or we should add more highlights to these next year. It's gonna take 3 days.
You can't just highlight the whole document and.
I could, but now I'm at the point where it's point pride, and I'm
And I'm not the software expert either, and I know that.
yeah.
Oh, you are starting this on, look at you.
I've been battling the ad machine enough this month. It's 24. It's a lot easier when you do a whole section. I will concede that. Okay.
I got one more for you. Go all the way up to the second library trustee position and remove the S at the end of year.
The remaining 1 years of a 3-year.
I don't know, I feel.
And we got the other one.
Got it. Okay. Second. Know that on this day 2 years ago, we had a meeting of the police services committee. I almost put it in the wrong folder.
I miss them.
Is you're feeling nostalgic?
It's almost like the Google photos that pop up that remind you of 5 years ago. And
On my screen share, friends, we'll get back to. Okay, so that's the watermark, but all the highlights are gone, painstakingly. So Articles 1 through 24, the Australian ballot ones, we do in fact have 24 of those. February 23rd, 2026. Sure, we looked at that at 5 PM. That's always been the date we've done that. I don't know if you want to change that. I don't know why I got set that way, but it's usually when we've done that. Hybrid meeting. 28th is town meeting. 3rd is the actual day of Australian ballot. We've got the remaining 1 year rather than years. 6 through 27. Our various numbers, the updated library number. 7. If 7, you're missing an opportunity. My kids would be killing for it.
It's gotten old though.
Yeah. Sorry.
Sorry, you're outdated, buddy.
6. There you go. So we got 7 there. We got the FY 27. Took the little increased markers out, but that was parent child center and Council on Aging are the 2 that are up. 20, 40, 40. On the surplus. Australian ballot is Article 25, 6, 7. Trini's favorite. Action, year and act on the reports of officers. Born dated at Randolph, Vermont, this 29th day of January. We have made Stephanie Tyler the clerk secretary in alphabetical order as per her preference.
think you got it. Do we have to sign that?
You do, but for now, I can get a copy to sign if you want to hang out for a couple minutes after. Since there's 4 of it, actually, that would be a good idea. I just gotta drop the signature lines in and then Tammy, I think, signs it as well and makes it official. So when you move it as presented and have it referenced either in the minutes, just say incorporated into the minutes of the meeting. And then I'll put it probably right in the body, actually, of the.
Okay, so motion to approve the town warning as presented and as presented in the body of the minutes.
The 2026 town meeting warning and to include the warning in its entirety in the minutes for this meeting.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carries.
So it was in the second, I was doing the asinine.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry about that.
Town manager report?
I have nothing other than I'll sharpen up here.
No,
Good news, it's
we
not,
don't. Executive session?
I don't have anything, I just put it on there in case something came up.
Motion to adjourn.
All those in favor?
Aye.
On something.